What really are we talking about here when we say entrepreneur, manager vis-a-vis a traditional manager in a traditional corporate? When I say entrepreneur, I'll be more referring to startup rather than established organizations my predecessors spoke about. In a traditional setup, if you look at it, manager is supposed to manage well what he's asked to do and what he's allowed to do. Depending on the structure, depending on the culture, maturity in industry, these two aspects virtually define the box with a sharper or fuzzier, but clearly visible boundaries are given. Whereas in a startup environment, in an entrepreneurship environment, in a startup environment, the manager is expected to manage what needs doing. Okay, right? The boundaries defining this are his skills, his experience, the ability to learn quickly in the job, and overall organizational priorities. This I'm talking from my own experience of starting, scaling and selling for ventures. Okay, right? A lot of differences come in when you look at this. One of the key differences in my experience has been the kind of support structure. A traditional manager can and is expected to assume that if he focuses on doing his job well, the rest will be taken care by others. The support system will work, okay, right? Failure due to absence of a support system, okay, right, is a valid and acceptable argument in corporates. Most of the corporates, generally in corporates. Whereas an entrepreneur is fully responsible for end-to-end success of whatever he's trying to deliver. You cannot assume that somebody else will be doing. Willingness to go for success without assuming support, I think is a key differentiator that I have found in my own roles, both as corporate manager with companies like Wipro, British Telecom, Bharti British Telecom, where I was the CEO between my ventures, and starting greenfield startup ventures. The other aspect that strikes me is the skills that is required. A traditional manager is expected to become an expert in his field, in his well-defined area, normally, right? Entrepreneur, on the other hand, has to execute over multiple fronts while he learns quickly. He therefore needs to execute in his core area, have the ability to very quickly learn in other contiguous areas, build a team. So some of the skills required to be an entrepreneur manager is more generalist rather than a specific in-depth experience. People talked about incentives and ownership and stock options. That's an area where I strongly disagree with what has been said. In my own experience, the challenge has been options are good, stock options are good, bonuses are good, variable compensation are good, but it can never replace the capital risk that an entrepreneur brings to the table. So one of the challenges as I scaled up companies or as we scale up companies, we find is how do I make a reward system? And I don't have an answer, so if this audience or if this panel can give it, is fine. Giving options, giving a variable pay over and above a very good, solid base pay is not really replacing the entrepreneurial risk that an entrepreneur takes by putting his capital at risk, okay, right? And we have seen this again and again. Having a great base package, plus a bonus scheme, plus a golden parachute in case the person gets sacked, plus a severance benefit, that, come on, let's get real. That's really not the same risk that an entrepreneur takes when he puts capital at risk. And I think that pretty much is a big challenge in terms of the way compensation is designed for an entrepreneur vis-a-vis entrepreneur manager. I think Neeraj talked about education, about how, how do you build entrepreneur managers. One of my challenges, I'm an MBA from Indian Institute of Management, so one of my pet peeves has been that in the MBA schools, at least in India, the MBA schools, they talk about how to manage risk. They teach us about how to manage and how to mitigate risks. There is no course on really how to take risks. So what happens, we produce excellent management graduates, okay, great managers who are extremely good at managing, mitigating risk, but not at taking risk. So that really, I think, is the need of the hour in terms of the management institutes in India to create more entrepreneur managers, more entrepreneurs to do that. I have seen, IIM Ahmedabad, for example, has started an incubation cell, has courses on entrepreneurship. My own fourth venture was incubated in IIITB in Bangalore. So there are institutions and academic institutions that are coming up with some kind of answers to create this course, some kind of incubation facilities, and also industry experience for entrepreneurs to be able to develop this particular mindset. Finally, I would like to highlight one aspect about mistaking entrepreneurship with adventurism. Okay, right? This is, if you look at what is happening in corporate America today, where huge risks are being taken by the CEOs or the people who are at the helm of affairs, okay, right? For short-term gains, for bonuses, for movement in stock prices, for growth. This misadventurism is not really entrepreneurship, okay, right? While both involve uncertainties, it is not, entrepreneurship is about taking risk. It is not just about saying that I'll become a good entrepreneur manager if I take higher risk, okay, right? Risk of outcomes, okay. In one case, the entrepreneur loses his shirt completely and everything else. While in other cases, like you see in corporate America, the people who have been at the helm of affairs don't lose anything. They perhaps lose some potential upside that they would have burned. Still, they get a huge severance pay. They get a lot of contract termination fees. They have been getting multi-million-dollar salaries. So we need to do something here to create a balance between the entrepreneur and entrepreneur manager so that this anomaly is arrested. Thank you very much.